The evening had started like any other, just another dinner gathering where my wife, Claire, insisted I accompany her and her friends. I knew the drill. Smile, nod at the right moments, let them talk over me, and accept my role as the insignificant extra in Claire's world. But I hadn't expected this. The red wine hit my face before I even registered the motion of Claire's hand. The warmth of it spread down my cheek, dripping onto my collar, soaking into my shirt. The restaurant's soft background chatter seemed to dim, and for a second, the whole room froze, except for Claire's laughter. It wasn't nervous or apologetic. No, it was sharp, full of amusement, the kind of laugh that let everyone know she meant it. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" she sneered, tilting the wine glass in her hand, as if contemplating throwing the rest. Laughter erupted around the table. Some of her friends giggled into their napkins. Others exchanged glances, unsure if they should join in. One or two of them looked uncomfortable, but they wouldn't dare say anything. Not against Claire. I sat there for a moment, feeling the wine seep into my skin, the acidic scent filling my nostrils. Every instinct screamed at me to react, to say something, to defend myself, to throw the damn wine back in her face. But I didn't. I reached for a napkin, dabbing at my face slowly. The humiliation burned deeper than the sting of the alcohol. This wasn't the first time Claire had embarrassed me in public. It wasn't even the worst thing she had done. But it was different. There was something in the way she looked at me, like she wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. She enjoyed this. I could feel all their eyes on me, waiting to see what I would do. Would I lash out? Would I storm off in a huff? Would I laugh along and let Claire win again? I did none of those things. I took a slow breath, straightened my posture, and calmly placed my napkin on the table. Without a word, I stood up, adjusted my shirt as best as I could, and turned away. The restaurant floor felt endless as I walked out, their whispers following behind me. I could still hear Claire chuckling, no doubt making some comment about how dramatic I was being. But I didn't care. By the time I got to my car, my hands were steady. No shaking, no hesitating. I unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and let the silence wrap around me. The scent of the wine clung to me, but it wasn't just wine I could smell. It was the end, not just of this evening, not just of this humiliation, of everything. I pulled out of the parking lot, driving on autopilot, my mind replaying the last few months. No, the last few years. The cutting remarks disguised as jokes, the constant dismissals, the way she treated me as if I were just another fixture in our home instead of her husband. It had been happening for so long, creeping into our marriage like rust on metal, slow and corrosive. And I had let it. But tonight was different. I wasn't going to wake up tomorrow and pretend it hadn't happened. I wasn't going to let Claire sweet talk her way out of it, or buy me a meaningless apology gift to smooth things over. I wasn't going to let myself believe, even for a second, that I had to endure this any longer. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my decision was made. This wasn't just another cruel joke. This was the last straw. I stepped into the house, locking the door behind me. The familiar scent of our home, a home that had felt less like ours and more like hers for a long time, filled my lungs. I walked past the framed wedding photos, past the expensive decor Claire had insisted on, past the perfectly curated life she had built on my silence. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the darkened screen of my laptop. My reflection stared back at me, faintly visible in the dim light. A man I barely recognized. That was about to change. I opened the laptop and pulled out a notepad, clicking the pen open with a quiet snap. And then I started writing. Not a letter, not a complaint, not an angry outburst. A list. A list of everything Claire had ever done to me. Every insult, every humiliation, every moment I had swallowed my pride for the sake of peace. I wrote down dates, words, actions, things I had forced myself to forget but never truly had. I detailed the slow erosion of our marriage, the way she had made me feel small in my own home. The words flowed easily, almost too easily. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her suffer. It was about remembering. Because for too long, I had convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe it was just how Claire was. But as I stared at the pages filling up with ink, I knew the truth. It had never been me. It had always been her. And now? It was over. Claire didn't come home immediately. I wasn't surprised. She loved the attention too much to leave the party early, especially after her little spectacle. She'd be basking in the glow of her moment, reveling in the laughter, replaying the way the wine splashed across my face in her mind. I sat alone in the dimly lit kitchen, my fingers tapping against the wooden table. The house was quiet, too quiet. It hadn't always felt this way. There was a time when this home had been filled with warmth, with the sound of shared laughter, quiet conversations stretching late into the night. But that was years ago. Now, the silence was suffocating. I looked down at the notepad in front of me. The list I had started earlier had grown longer. Every line felt like a scar reopened, a wound I had tried to ignore for far too long. Claire's insults had started subtly at first. A harmless joke here, a teasing remark there. I had laughed them off in the beginning. But then they grew sharper, crueler, laced with an edge I couldn't ignore. Oh, don't bother helping, you'd just mess it up. You? Fix something around the house. That's funny. God, you're embarrassing. The words had built up over time, chipping away at me like slow erosion, wearing me down until I didn't even recognize the man staring back at me in the mirror. Tonight was just the final confirmation of what I had been denying for too long. Claire didn't respect me. She didn't love me. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. I leaned back in the chair, rubbing a hand over my face. The scent of wine still lingered on my skin. I needed a shower, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The front door opened. Her footsteps were light, almost careful, as she stepped inside. I knew her well enough to recognize the shift in her energy. She was expecting me to be in bed, curled up and licking my wounds like a kicked dog. She didn't expect me to be sitting here, waiting. When she stepped into the kitchen and saw me at the table, her expression flickered for just a second. She masked it quickly, but I caught it. Unease. She tilted her head, forcing a smirk. Oh, come on. You're not still upset about that, are you? I didn't respond. She sighed dramatically, tossing her purse onto the counter. Seriously, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing. You always take things so personally. I still didn't say anything. That was when she actually looked at me. Really looked at me. Her smirk faltered. What? I held up the notepad. She squinted at it, confused. What the hell is that? I flipped it closed and set it aside. A list. Her brows furrowed. A list of what? I met her gaze evenly. Everything you've ever done to me. Silence. For the first time in a long time, Claire had no quick comeback, no sarcastic remark, no dismissive wave of her hand. She let out a short laugh, but it sounded forced. Oh, please. She crossed her arms. Don't be dramatic. I didn't look away. Her amusement slowly faded. You're serious. I nodded. Something flickered across her face. It wasn't guilt. Claire never felt guilt. It was something closer to annoyance, maybe even nervousness. She didn't like this. She didn't like the idea of me keeping track, of me remembering. Because for years, she had relied on me forgetting. On me brushing it aside. On me letting it go. I don't know what you think you're doing, she said, her voice sharper now. But I'm not in the mood for your little pity party. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on the table. You humiliated me tonight. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, it was a joke. You call me an idiot. You acted like one. I inhaled slowly. You threw wine in my face. She scoffed. You deserved it. And there it was. No regret. No apology. Just justification. Claire had never seen me as an equal. I had been nothing more than a background character in her life. An accessory she could dress up or ridicule depending on her mood. I pushed my chair back and stood. This was the last time. Her brow furrowed. What? This was the last time you'll ever get to humiliate me. She let out a laugh, but there was an edge of unease behind it. Oh, please. What are you going to do? Run away? Go cry somewhere. I smiled, but it wasn't the kind she was used to. No. I'm going to make sure you never do this to me again. I grabbed my notepad, my laptop, and turned to leave the kitchen. Claire stood frozen for a moment before calling after me. Oh, so now you're just going to storm off like some victim? Grow up. I didn't stop. She hated this. She hated not being in control of the situation. Claire thrived on having the upper hand, on knowing exactly what buttons to press. But tonight, she had lost that control. And for the first time in years, I felt it. I climbed the stairs, entered the bedroom, and locked the door behind me. Claire banged on it almost immediately. Are you serious? You're locking me out. I didn't respond. Fine. Be childish. Sleep in there alone. Her footsteps stormed away, and I heard her grab a pillow and blanket from the hall closet. She would sleep in the guest room tonight. Fuming. I climbed into bed, staring up at the ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. The house was quiet in the morning, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that felt tense, thick with the weight of everything left unsaid. Claire hadn't come back to the bedroom. She had spent the night in the guest room, no doubt stewing over the fact that I had locked her out. I had barely slept, but I wasn't exhausted. I had been running on something else, something stronger. Clarity. I stepped into the kitchen and brewed a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air as I sat at the table, laptop open, notepad beside me. The list. I read over it again, not because I needed to remember, but because I needed to be sure. Every single line was a reminder, a confirmation of what I already knew. This wasn't fixable. I heard Claire's footsteps before I saw her. She always walked with purpose, heels clicking against the hardwood floor like she was making a statement with every step. This morning, she was barefoot, and yet she still carried herself with that same air of superiority. She stopped in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest, her expression unreadable. "So, are you done sulking?" I didn't look up. I took a sip of coffee. "Morning, Claire." She scoffed, stepping into the kitchen. "Oh, we're being civil now? What happened to all that dramatic brooding last night?" I finally glanced up at her. I wasn't brooding. She smirked, but there was an underlying tension in her face. "Oh, right. You were making a list. God, I hope you realize how ridiculous that is." I didn't respond. I just watched her. That seemed to irritate her. Claire didn't like silence unless she was the one creating it. She thrived on reactions, on controlling the narrative. She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of orange juice, and poured herself a glass. "So, what's the plan here?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "Are you expecting me to grovel? To beg for your forgiveness?" I closed my laptop slowly. "No." She took a sip, raising an eyebrow. "Then what do you want?" I pulled out my phone and unlocked it. I could see her watching me, curious but still dismissive, like she was waiting for me to say something she could mock. Instead, I just pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Sharp, clear, unmistakable. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" The sound of laughter followed. The clinking of glasses. The humiliating moment, perfectly captured. Claire froze. The video played on, the camera angle shifting slightly. It had clearly been recorded by someone sitting at the table, someone who hadn't found it as funny as she did. When the video ended, I set my phone down. She let out a short laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Who the hell recorded that?" "One of your friends." Her jaw tightened. "Which one?" I leaned back in my chair. "Does it matter?" She crossed her arms again, but this time, it wasn't out of defiance. It was defensive. "So what? You're keeping a video like some bitter ex-girlfriend? Are you planning to do something with it?" I didn't answer. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Jesus, you're unbelievable. You act like I committed some kind of crime." "It was a joke." I tilted my head. "Did it look like a joke to you?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. People laugh at each other all the time. Don't be so sensitive." "People laugh with each other, Claire. Not at." She scoffed, but there was a flicker of something in her expression, something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not because she thought I would hurt her. No, Claire wasn't afraid of me like that. She was afraid because, for the first time, she wasn't in control. "Delete it," she said suddenly. I smirked. "Why? It was just a joke, right?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. I let the silence stretch between us, waiting. "Seriously," she said, her voice lower now. "Delete it." I took another sip of coffee. "No." Her nostrils flared. "You're acting like a child." I shrugged. "Maybe, but you're acting like someone who's suddenly very worried about a harmless joke." Her jaw tightened. She looked away, rubbing her fingers against the rim of her glass. "I swear to God, if you try to embarrass me with that video, I set my coffee down with a quiet clink. "You'll what?" She snapped her mouth shut. And just like that, the power shifted. For years, Claire had held all the control. She dictated the way our marriage functioned, the way people perceived us, the way I saw myself. She had crafted a narrative where she was the strong, charismatic wife with the weak, pathetic husband who was lucky to have her. But now she was the one floundering. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "You've spent years making me feel small, Claire. You've torn me down in front of your friends, your colleagues, hell, even strangers. And every time, I let it go. Every time, I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. That I loved you too much to make it a big deal. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. But last night, I continued. Last night, I realized something. I realized that you don't love me, Claire. You love control. You love having someone to belittle, someone to make yourself feel superior to. That's not. I held up a hand. Don't. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise. She swallowed. I sat back again, watching her carefully. I'm not going to post the video, if that's what you're worried about. I'm not petty, but I am done pretending. She hesitated. What does that mean? I exhaled slowly. It means things are going to change. Claire wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to me standing my ground, to me refusing to play along. She tried to mask her unease with indifference, but I saw right through it. Fine, she muttered, pushing off the counter. You want to play this little game? Be my guest. She turned on her heel and stalked out of the kitchen. I didn't stop her. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in our marriage, Claire was the one walking away uncertain. Claire stormed up the stairs, her footsteps heavy, each one laced with frustration. She expected me to follow her, to chase her down, to try and talk things through, to beg for an apology that would never come. That's how it had always been. She would cross a line. I would call her out. She'd deflect. I'd try to smooth things over, and the cycle would repeat. But not this time. This time, I stayed put. I picked up my coffee, took a slow sip, and let the silence settle around me. Claire thought she was in control of this situation, but she had no idea just how much I had already taken back. Because while she had been out humiliating me last night, I had been busy. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened my banking app. The numbers were exactly where I had left them. Half of our shared savings, now securely in my own account. Legally mine. Claire had always been the one who managed the finances, not because I couldn't, but because she liked to. She liked knowing where the money was going, how much was being spent, and, more importantly, how much power she had over it. She controlled the credit cards, the accounts, the bills. She made sure I always had just enough to keep me comfortable, but never enough to make me independent. That changed last night. I had transferred my half, removed her access to my credit card, and frozen our joint account. If she wanted money, she'd have to dip into her own savings. I locked my phone and set it down. Claire would find out soon enough. I turned my attention back to my laptop. I had already drafted the necessary emails to my lawyer. Just preliminary inquiries, nothing official yet, but it was only a matter of time before this marriage was over. Because I was done. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. I wasn't going to be the man she laughed at in front of her friends. I wasn't going to need her approval to feel like I was worth something. A sharp thud echoed from upstairs. Claire had slammed something. Maybe a dresser drawer, maybe the door itself. She was angry. Good. Let her be angry. She had built this entire marriage on the idea that I would always be there, that no matter how cruel she was, I would stay, that I would tolerate the cutting remarks, the dismissive glances, the way she spoke to me like I was an inconvenience rather than her husband. But the moment she realized she was losing control, the moment she felt the ground shift beneath her, that's when the panic would set in. I didn't have to wait long. Minutes later, she came stomping back down the stairs, her face carefully composed, but her eyes burning with frustration. She was holding her phone in one hand, gripping it tightly. I didn't look up right away. I let her stand there, shifting from one foot to the other, waiting for me to acknowledge her. Finally, I glanced up. Something wrong. She let out a short laugh, but it was hollow. You think you're clever, don't you? I arched an eyebrow. I don't know what you mean. She lifted her phone slightly. My card got declined. I took another sip of coffee. That's unfortunate. Her jaw clenched. Cut the crap. What did you do? I set my mug down and leaned back. I secured my finances. Her nostrils flared. Our finances. I tilted my head slightly. No, Claire. My finances. I took my share. The rest is still there for you. She scoffed, running a hand through her hair. You think you can just do that? Just take half of our money like you're entitled to it. I exhaled slowly, letting my fingers drum against the table. You mean like how you've been using our money to go on vacations with your friends? Buying things you never even told me about? Throwing expensive dinner parties where I'm nothing more than the butt of the joke? She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're still on that? It was one night. I shook my head. No, Claire. It wasn't. It was years of the same treatment, the same disregard, the same humiliation. She stared at me, her lips pressed into a thin line. So what? You're just going to what? Punish me? Make me suffer because your ego got bruised? I smiled. No, I'm just done letting you dictate my life. Claire crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally standing up for myself. Her eyes flickered with something. Hesitation, uncertainty. She didn't like this. She didn't like that I wasn't reacting the way I used to. Normally, she would be able to gaslight me, manipulate me into thinking I was overreacting, convince me that I was the problem. But not this time. She exhaled sharply. So what now? I studied her carefully. Now? I start planning my future without you in it. She let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh, please. You wouldn't last a week without me. I smirked. That's what you'd like to believe. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced down at it, and I watched as her expression shifted. More messages. More people talking. It wasn't just about the money. People were seeing her differently now. I knew at least one of her friends had shared that video beyond our dinner table. And once things spread, they didn't stop. Claire had always been the golden one, the woman everyone admired, the one who could do no wrong. But now, she was being seen through a different lens. I could tell by the way her shoulders tensed that she had seen something that rattled her. She glanced back at me, something calculating in her gaze. You're really doing this? I nodded. I am. She inhaled through her nose, her jaw tightening. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the desperate attempt to figure out her next move. But the thing was, she had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. Claire turned on her heel and walked away. I let her go. She could plot all she wanted. She could try to twist things, manipulate the situation, find a way to spin this back in her favor. But it wouldn't work. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. The next morning, Claire acted as if nothing had happened. I expected this. It was part of her strategy. Pretend the problem didn't exist until she could figure out a way to twist it back in her favor. She sat at the breakfast bar, sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone, looking as composed as ever. But I wasn't fooled. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tightness in her grip, the way she was deliberately avoiding looking at me. I didn't say anything as I poured my own coffee and sat across from her. I could feel the weight of her silence, the brewing storm behind her calm facade. She wanted me to be the first to speak, to break the tension so she could control the conversation. I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I sipped my coffee, opened my laptop, and started going through my emails. She lasted about 5 minutes before she snapped. What the hell did you do? I didn't look up. You'll have to be more specific. Her jaw clenched. Don't play dumb with me. My bank account is frozen, my card is still declining, and she waved her phone. This video is everywhere. I slowly shut my laptop and met her gaze. Oh, her eyes narrowed. You knew this would happen. I leaned back in my chair. No, Claire. You did this. I didn't tell you to humiliate me in public. I didn't make you throw wine in my face. I didn't record the video. One of your friends did. And apparently, the world doesn't find it as funny as you thought they would. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You should have deleted it. I arched an eyebrow. Why? It was just a joke, right? Her fingers curled around her phone. God, you're pathetic. You're actually acting like a victim. I smirked. Because I was. She stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. Do you have any idea what you've done? My clients are seeing this. My boss saw it. I got an email this morning about a meeting they want to have. They think this makes me look unprofessional. I tilted my head. Huh. Imagine that. Her glare was ice. You're enjoying this. I took another sip of coffee, my voice calm. I'm enjoying watching you deal with the consequences of your own actions. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. And what? You think you're winning? What's your plan, huh? Destroy my reputation? Take half the money and run? Do you really think you're the one coming out on top? I sighed, shaking my head. Claire, this isn't about winning. It's about finally standing up for myself. She scoffed, shaking her head. Oh, please. You think you're some kind of martyr? You're still the same pathetic man you've always been. You think a few financial moves and a viral video make you stronger? I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back. No, Claire. What makes me stronger is realizing I don't need you. She froze. For years, she had held on to this belief that I was dependent on her, that I needed her validation, her approval, her presence. She thought I would always be there, no matter how badly she treated me. But she was wrong. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, and my coffee. I have work to do. She blinked. as if she hadn't expected me to just walk away. But I did. I went to my office, closed the door, and left her standing there, alone with her panic. I sat at my desk, exhaling slowly. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control. I wasn't sure how long I had been working when I heard Claire on the phone. Her voice was sharp, laced with barely contained frustration. "I don't care how it happened. Just fix it," she snapped. A pause. "No, I don't know who sent it to them, but I need it taken down." She was scrambling. I smirked to myself. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to people seeing the real her. I continued with my work, letting her deal with the fallout. Eventually, she came knocking. I didn't look up. "Busy." She opened the door anyway. "We need to talk." I sighed, closing my laptop. "About what?" She hesitated, then crossed her arms. "You need to help me fix this." I blinked. Then I actually laughed. She scowled. "I'm serious." I shook my head. "You don't get it, do you? I don't need to help you. I'm not your problem solver, Claire. I'm not your PR team. You did this to yourself." Her nostrils flared. "Do you have any idea what this could cost me?" I stood up, meeting her glare head on. "Do you have any idea what you've cost me? My self-respect? My dignity? My sanity?" She clenched her jaw. "This is ridiculous." I shrugged. "Maybe, but it's not my problem anymore." She stared at me, something flickering behind her eyes. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw something close to fear. Not fear of me, fear of losing. Because for the first time, she realized she wasn't in control. I picked up my phone, checked the time. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Do you need anything else?" Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something. But she didn't. Instead, she turned and walked out. I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of my desk. It was happening. The shift. The power that she had wielded over me for years was slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. And the best part? I didn't even have to do anything. She was undoing herself. Claire was unraveling. I saw it in the way she carried herself now. Her usual confidence had dimmed, her sharp, cutting tone laced with something new. She was still fighting, still trying to regain her grip, but I could see the cracks forming. She spent most of the day on the phone, trying to put out fires. The video had spread further than she anticipated, and no amount of damage control could fully erase the stain on her perfect reputation. I sat in the living room, watching as she paced back and forth, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. "What do you mean it's still up?" she hissed. "I thought you said you could get it taken down." A pause. Her fingers curled into her palm. "I know how the internet works, but there has to be something we can do." She stopped mid-sentence, her back straightening. Her head turned slightly, her eyes meeting mine. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. The silence stretched between us, heavy and loaded. She ended the call abruptly and tossed her phone onto the couch. "Are you enjoying this?" I leaned back against the cushions. "Enjoying what?" She scoffed. "Watching me deal with all this." I took a sip of my drink. "I don't have to watch you deal with anything, Claire. You brought this on yourself." Her hands balled into fists. "You could have deleted the video." I arched an eyebrow. "And you could have not thrown wine in my face and humiliated me in front of your friends. Actions have consequences." She shook her head, pacing again. "It's not just about you, you know. This is affecting my career. My boss is putting me on leave while they assess my behavior. My clients are distancing themselves." She stopped and looked at me, her lips curling in frustration. "But I bet you love that, don't you?" I set my drink down. "No, Claire. I don't love watching your life fall apart. But I do think it's poetic justice that you're finally experiencing what it's like to be dismissed, judged, and disrespected." Her nostrils flared. "This is so typical of you. Playing the victim, pretending like you were some helpless little puppy in our marriage. I took care of everything. I built this life, and you controlled everything." I interrupted, my voice even. "You dictated every decision, every expense, every move we made. You never saw me as an equal, Claire. You saw me as an accessory." She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped, because she knew I was right. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she folded her arms and exhaled sharply. "So what now? You just punish me." I shook my head. "I'm not punishing you, Claire. I'm just done letting you punish me." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but she hesitated. That hesitation was new. Claire never hesitated. She always had an answer, always had a counterattack. But now, she was losing. And she knew it. She turned away from me, grabbing her phone again, scrolling furiously as if looking for some last shred of control. I let her, because at this point, nothing she did could change what was coming. I checked the time. I have a meeting soon. She didn't look up. Of course you do, she muttered. I stood up, walking past her, pausing only when I reached the door. By the way, you might want to check your email. That made her head snap up. I left before she could say anything. I sat in my office, letting the weight of everything sink in. The email I had mentioned, the one she was about to open, it was from my lawyer. It wasn't official yet, but the process had started. I wasn't just leaving Claire emotionally. I was leaving her legally. I could almost picture the way her face would drop when she saw it. The realization, the full weight of what she had done finally hitting her. I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. She had spent years treating me like I was disposable, like I needed her more than she needed me. She was about to find out how wrong she was. I didn't have to wait long. Claire's reaction came just as I expected. Barely 15 minutes after I left her in the living room, I heard the sharp sound of her phone being thrown against the counter. Then came the stomping. Heavy, deliberate, filled with barely contained rage. She didn't knock on my office door. Claire didn't knock for anything. She pushed it open, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, her face an unreadable mask. I didn't look up right away. I kept my focus on my laptop, as if I didn't hear the door, as if I didn't feel the storm brewing in the room. Finally, she spoke. "You're divorcing me?" Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't a scream, like I had expected, but there was something underneath it, something sharp and dangerous, like a blade hidden beneath silk. I typed another word on my document, hit save, and closed my laptop before looking up. Yes. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. Just like that. I leaned back in my chair, meeting her gaze evenly. "No, Claire. Not just like that. This has been a long time coming." She let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, come on. This is over a stupid dinner party? Over a little bit of spilled wine? You're really throwing away our marriage over that?" I shook my head slowly. "No, Claire. I'm throwing away our marriage because I don't want it anymore." That hit her. Her lips parted slightly, her body going rigid. She had been prepared to argue, to manipulate, to twist the situation into something small and petty. But she wasn't prepared for that. She took a slow step forward, her arms loosening slightly. "You're serious?" I nodded. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." She blinked, as if trying to process it. Then, just like that, the mask was back on. She scoffed, crossing her arms again. "Fine. You want a divorce? Go ahead. But don't think you're going to walk away with anything." I smirked. "Claire, I already did." Her jaw clenched. "Excuse me." I picked up my phone, scrolled through my banking app, and then turned the screen toward her. She went pale. "You son of a..." "Careful," I said, my voice calm. "Remember, everything you say can be used against you in court." Her nostrils flared, but she didn't take the bait. Instead, she turned on her heel, pacing the room. "You think you're smart," she muttered. "You think you've won." I sighed, rubbing my temple. "Claire, this isn't a game." She let out a dry laugh. "Oh, it is. And you just changed the rules." I watched her carefully. Claire was calculating now. That meant she was shifting her strategy. She wasn't going to throw things. She wasn't going to scream. That was too easy, too emotional. Instead, she was going to try and control the narrative. "I'll contest it," she said, her voice smoother now. "You think this will be simple? That I'll just sign the papers and disappear? Oh no. We built this life together, and I'm going to make sure you pay for this decision." I shrugged. "You can contest all you want. It won't change anything." She narrowed her eyes. "You really think you have the upper hand?" I smiled. "Claire, for the first time in this marriage, I do." She stared at me, studying me, searching for something she could use. Then, she did something I hadn't expected. She softened. Her arms uncrossed, her lips parted slightly, and she stepped closer. "Do you really want to do this?" she asked, her voice quieter now. I tilted my head. "Yes." She exhaled, rubbing a hand over her face. "Look, maybe we got carried away. Maybe things got bad. But we've been together a long time. We have history." I leaned back in my chair. "History isn't a reason to stay in something that makes you miserable." She hesitated. "You're really miserable?" I nodded. "You've made sure of it." She looked away. For a split second, I thought I saw something close to regret. But with Claire, I never knew if it was real or if it was just another performance. Finally, she sighed. "What if we tried?" I raised an eyebrow. Tried. She shrugged, forcing a small smile. To fix this? I mean, come on. We've been through worse, haven't we? I let the silence stretch between us before speaking. What's the real reason, Claire? Her brow furrowed. What? I stood up slowly, walking toward her. Why do you suddenly want to fix things? Is it because you miss me? Because you want our marriage to work? She said nothing. I took another step forward. Or is it because you're afraid of what happens when you don't have me around anymore? Her lips pressed into a thin line. There it was. I exhaled, stepping back. That's what I thought. She scoffed. Oh, don't flatter yourself. I smirked. I don't need to. The truth is already doing that for me. She turned, gripping the doorframe. You'll regret this. I picked up my phone again. I doubt it. She stormed out, and I let her go, because I knew, deep down, that she had already lost. That night, Claire didn't sleep in our bedroom. She didn't even try to. I heard her moving around in the guest room, shuffling through drawers, opening and closing cabinets, making just enough noise to remind me of her presence. It was her way of making a statement. She wanted me to know she was still there, that she wasn't going anywhere quietly. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the city outside. A part of me expected to feel something, regret, hesitation, maybe even nostalgia. But there was nothing. No sadness. No longing. Just relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. I turned over, closed my eyes, and let the exhaustion take me. Morning came quickly. The scent of coffee drifted through the air, but it wasn't the usual warm, comforting aroma that filled our home. It was sharp, deliberate, like Claire was making it just for herself. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the counter, her phone in one hand, a steaming mug in the other. She looked up when I walked in, her expression unreadable. For a moment, there was silence. Then, she set her mug down and exhaled. So that's it. I poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time. What's it? She let out a humorless laugh. You're really just walking away from all of this. I leaned against the counter, meeting her gaze. I walked away a long time ago, Claire. You just didn't notice. Her lips pressed into a thin line. That's ridiculous. Is it? I tilted my head. Because I think it's the most honest thing I've said in years. She shook her head, taking a slow sip of her drink. You don't get it. You don't just leave. It doesn't work like that. I sighed, setting my mug down. Claire, we both know this marriage hasn't been a marriage for a long time. You don't respect me. You don't even like me. She flinched, just barely, but enough for me to see it. I continued. You liked having me around because it was convenient. Because I made things easier for you. But let's be honest. If I had walked away years ago, you wouldn't have fought for me. She looked away, her fingers tightening around her mug. I waited. She exhaled, rubbing her forehead. You're really going through with this. I nodded. I already started the process. Her head snapped up. You what? I sent the email to my lawyer yesterday. I said simply. It's already in motion. Her eyes darkened. You didn't even talk to me first? I arched an eyebrow. Would it have changed anything? She scoffed. That's not the point. It kind of is. She stared at me, something unreadable flickering in her gaze. Then, she shook her head, laughing under her breath. Unbelievable. I leaned forward slightly. Tell me something, Claire. She rolled her eyes. What? If I hadn't said anything, if I had just kept going the way things were, would you have ever considered fixing our marriage? She hesitated. Then, she looked away. That was all the answer I needed. I exhaled, pushing off the counter. I'll start moving my things into the guest room today. It's only a matter of time before one of us leaves the house, so might as well make things easier. She let out a short laugh. Wow, you've really got it all planned out, don't you? I shrugged. I had a lot of time to think about it. Her fingers drummed against the counter. You're not the man I married. I smirked. You're right. I'm not. That guy put up with your crap. I'm done being him. Her expression hardened, but I saw something else behind it. Something closer to fear. Not fear of me. Not fear of being alone. Fear of losing control. For years, she had dictated the terms of our relationship. She had been the one pulling the strings, making the decisions, deciding how things would play out. But now, she was scrambling. And for the first time, she had no idea what to do next. She stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back. Fine. Do whatever you want. I nodded, finishing my coffee. I will. She turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Because no matter what she did, no matter how she tried to twist things, the truth remained the same. This marriage was over, and I had never felt so free. The day passed slowly, but the tension in the house was anything but subtle. Claire wasn't speaking to me, not out of sadness, but out of calculated anger. She wanted me to feel the weight of her silence, to feel guilty, to second-guess myself. But that wasn't going to happen. I spent most of the morning moving my things into the guest room. Not that I had much. Over the years, Claire had made sure the house reflected her tastes, not ours. My presence had been reduced to a small space in the closet, a few drawers, and a single shelf in the bathroom. It was strange, packing my things and realizing just how little of me actually existed in this house. I had spent years living here, and yet, it felt like I was visiting someone else's home. By mid-afternoon, I was nearly finished. My suitcases were in the corner, my laptop and personal files stacked neatly on the desk. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I was zipping up the last bag when I heard Claire's voice downstairs. It wasn't just her voice. She was on the phone. I stepped closer to the door, listening. "No, he's being completely unreasonable," she said, her tone sharp. "He thinks he's some kind of victim just because I called him out in front of people." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Even now, she refused to take accountability. A pause. "I don't know what he's planning," she continued, her voice growing more frustrated. "But I'm not just going to sit here and let him make me the bad guy." Another pause. Then, she let out a bitter laugh. "No, he's not smart enough to pull anything drastic," she said. "I mean, come on. This is him we're talking about." My fingers tightened around the zipper pull. I had spent years listening to Claire talk about me like that. Like I was less. Like I was incapable of thinking for myself, of making my own decisions, of existing without her constant input. She had spent our entire marriage believing she was superior, that she was smarter, that I needed her. But she was wrong. I stepped away from the door, deciding I had heard enough. By the time I walked downstairs, Claire was off the phone, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. She looked up when she saw me. "Are you seriously moving into the guest room?" I nodded. "Yeah." She scoffed. "Dramatic much?" I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filling it with water. "It's called giving us space, Claire. Something we probably should have done a long time ago." She watched me carefully. "You think that makes a difference? Sleeping in a different room? You're still here." I set the glass down. "Not for long." She went still. I saw the shift in her expression, the realization that I wasn't just doing this to prove a point. I was done. "You're serious?" I nodded. "Yeah." She let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. "So that's it. You're just walking away?" I exhaled. "Claire, you walked away from this marriage a long time ago. I'm just catching up." Her jaw clenched. "You're so dramatic." I smirked. "You keep saying that. Maybe you just don't like the fact that, for once, you're not the one in control." Her eyes darkened. "Don't flatter yourself." I leaned against the counter, watching her. "Why does it bother you so much?" She frowned. "What? That I'm leaving?" She crossed her arms. "Because it's pathetic. You think this is some kind of revenge? You think you're proving something?" I shook my head. "No. I think I'm finally choosing myself." Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and grabbed her phone, scrolling through something quickly. "You know, you're not going to win," she muttered. I sighed. "Claire, this isn't about winning." She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, it is. And you're too naive to see it." I tilted my head. "What are you talking about?" She held up her phone. "I talked to my lawyer." I exhaled slowly. "Of course you did." Her smile widened. "In surprise, I'm contesting everything." I didn't react. She wanted me to. She wanted me to panic, to scramble, to fight. That was how Claire won, by making people lose their cool while she stayed collected. Instead, I just picked up my glass and took a slow sip. She frowned. "That's all you have to say?" I set the glass down. "Claire, I don't care what you do. Contest it, fight it, drag it out. It doesn't change anything." She studied me. "You really think you're untouchable, don't you?" I sighed. "No. I just don't care enough to play your games anymore." That hit her. For the first time in years, I saw something flicker behind her eyes, something real. Fear. Because Claire thrived on control, and she was losing it. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. "You're making a mistake." I shrugged. "Maybe, but at least it's mine to make." She scoffed, shaking her head. "You'll regret this." I smirked. Funny. I was about to say the same thing to you. She tensed, her grip tightening. Then, without another word, she walked away. I didn't stop her, because no matter what she did next, no matter how hard she fought, the outcome would be the same. I was leaving, and this time, there was nothing she could do about it. Claire didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. Not one word. At first, I thought it was part of her strategy, her usual method of controlling the situation by making me feel uncomfortable in the silence, like I should be the one apologizing. But as the hours passed, I realized something had changed. This wasn't just her playing mind games anymore. This was something deeper, something real. I saw it in the way she moved through the house, her posture a little stiffer, her steps more deliberate. She wasn't stomping, wasn't slamming doors or making a scene like she normally would when she was angry. No, she was processing. For the first time since this started, Claire wasn't reacting. She was thinking. I went about my evening as usual, making myself dinner, going through some emails, keeping to myself. Every so often, I caught glimpses of her in the hallway or out of the corner of my eye, standing by the window, lost in thought. She was unraveling in a different way now. Not with rage, but with realization. She had spent years believing she was the one in control, that no matter what she did, I would always stay, always tolerate, always bend. But now, she was seeing the truth. I wasn't bending anymore. I was leaving. And no amount of manipulation or contesting or power plays would change that. I was sitting in the guest room later that night, scrolling through my phone, when there was a soft knock on the door. I knew it was her before I even looked up. For a moment, I debated ignoring it. But something told me this wasn't another one of her games. So, I sighed, set my phone down, and said, "Come in." The door opened slowly, and Claire stepped inside. She wasn't dressed to intimidate like usual, no designer blouse, no perfectly tailored pants. She was in an oversized sweater and leggings, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look smaller, almost unsure. It was the most human I had seen her in years. She hesitated, glancing around the guest room. "So, you're really doing it?" I nodded. "Yeah." She swallowed. I checked my email. I leaned back against the pillows, watching her carefully. And she let out a soft breath, her hands twisting together in front of her. "You actually filed." There was something in her voice that I couldn't quite place. Not anger, not even sadness, just disbelief. Like she had never truly considered that this was how it would end. "I told you I would," I said simply. She nodded, looking down at the floor. "Yeah, I didn't think." She trailed off, shaking her head slightly, as if even she couldn't finish the sentence. I waited. She took a slow breath, then finally met my eyes. "I don't want this." I sighed. "Claire." "No, just listen," she interrupted, stepping closer. "I know I've been." She stopped, pressing her lips together. "I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't always treated you fairly." I arched an eyebrow. That's an understatement. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Yeah, maybe it is." She glanced at the bed, then back at me. "Can I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from me. She let out a small, humorless laugh, but didn't argue. Instead, she sat down, folding her hands in her lap. A few moments of silence passed before she spoke again. "I don't know when things got this bad." I let out a slow breath. "I do." She looked up at me. I held her gaze. "It wasn't just one thing, Claire. It was everything. The way you spoke to me, the way you dismissed me, the way you made me feel like I was nothing in my own home." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I cut in. "You did mean to, Claire. You liked making me feel small. It made you feel bigger." She flinched, but I didn't let up. For years, I told myself it was just your personality, that you didn't mean the things you said, that if I just tried harder, maybe you'd respect me, maybe you'd see me. I shook my head. "But you never did, and you never would." She inhaled shakily, her hands gripping the fabric of her leggings. "I don't want you to go." I sighed, running a hand down my face. "Claire, please," she said softly. It was the first time she had ever said that word to me, and it almost worked. Almost. I studied her, really studied her. For the first time, she looked lost. But I couldn't let that change my decision. Because this wasn't about Claire anymore. This was about me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Claire, do you actually want me? Or do you just not want to lose?" Her eyes widened slightly, as if the question had never even occurred to her. And that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting for the control she was losing. She was fighting because she hated the idea of being left. But she wasn't fighting because she loved me. I sighed, standing up. I think you should go back to your room. She stared at me. That's it. I nodded. Yeah. She looked down, her lips pressing together, her body tense. For a moment, I thought she might try again. Might say something else, try to pull another card, another angle. But instead, she just nodded. Then, without another word, she stood and walked toward the door. She paused in the doorway, gripping the frame for just a second. Then she glanced back at me, her eyes unreadable. I'm sorry, she murmured. I exhaled slowly. I hope one day you mean that. She flinched. Then, she left. And I didn't follow. I sat back down on the bed, rubbing a hand over my face. It was over. For real, this time. No more second-guessing. No more wondering if I was making the right choice. I was done. And for the first time in years, I felt free. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen for a moment. Then, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I smiled. I stood there in the kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. Celia sat at the table, sipping her tea like nothing was wrong, her voice calm and steady as she dropped the bomb. It's just family at Caleb's graduation, she said, not even looking up from her cup. It's less awkward if you don't come. Less awkward? For who? I wanted to yell, to flip the table, to demand an explanation, but my throat tightened, and all I could do was stare at her. Then Caleb walked in, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and nodded like it was no big deal. Yeah, Dad, it's just a ceremony. Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal? How do you not take that personal? I'd been there for every scraped knee, every late-night homework session, every game where I screamed my lungs out from the bleachers. I paid for that damn degree he was about to wave around, and now I wasn't even worth a seat in the back? The words hit me like a freight train, but I didn't let them see it. I've always been good at swallowing the hurt, keeping the peace, being the steady one. Celia kept sipping her tea, her eyes on her phone now, probably texting her sister Myra about some nonsense. Caleb grabbed an apple and headed for the door, muttering something about meeting his girlfriend. And me? I just stood there, the counter cold under my palms, feeling like a ghost in my own house. I'd spent 20 years building this family, pouring everything I had into it, and now they were telling me I didn't belong at one of the biggest moments of my son's life. It wasn't just the graduation, it was the message behind it. I wasn't needed. I wasn't wanted. I didn't argue. I couldn't. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a chain around it and yanked hard, but I kept my face blank. Okay, I said, my voice low, steady, like I was agreeing to skip a movie night, not being cut out of my own son's milestone. Celia didn't even glance up. Caleb was already halfway out the door. And that was it. The decision was made, and I wasn't part of it. I let go of the counter, my hands shaking a little, and walked upstairs to our bedroom. The house was quiet, too quiet, and every step felt heavier than the last. I pulled my old duffel bag from the closet, the one I used to take on fishing trips with my brother Luis back when life was simpler. I started packing socks, shirts, a pair of shorts, moving on autopilot, not even sure where I was going yet. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bag, and that's when it hit me. I didn't have to stay here. I didn't have to sit in this house, waiting for them to realize what they'd just done to me. I grabbed my laptop, opened a travel site, and scrolled through destinations. Santorini popped up. White buildings, blue roofs, endless sea. It looked like the opposite of this suffocating kitchen. I booked the ticket right then, one way, leaving tomorrow. My phone buzzed. Probably Ellie from work, asking about some report, but I ignored it. I didn't tell Celia. I didn't tell Caleb. I just zipped the bag shut and stood there, breathing hard, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief wash over me. The next morning, I was gone before they woke up. No note, no goodbye, just the sound of my truck pulling out of the driveway. I drove to the airport, my hands tight on the wheel, replaying their words in my head. Less awkward. Don't take it personal. By the time I boarded the plane, I wasn't just leaving the city, I was leaving them behind, at least for a while. I settled into my seat, the hum of the engines drowning out the noise in my mind, and stared out the window as the ground fell away. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what they needed. I was thinking about me. Santorini was waiting, and I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not anymore. As the plane climbed higher, I felt the weight start to lift, just a little. I didn't know what I'd find when I landed, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them make me feel small again. I'd given them everything. Every paycheck, every late night, every quiet moment I let slide when they forgot to say thanks. And this was how they repaid me. I leaned back in my seat, closing my eyes, picturing the sea ahead. They could have their graduation, their family-only day. I'd find my own peace, my own place, even if it was halfway across the world. The plane leveled off, and I let out a long breath. This wasn't running away. This was choosing myself. And damn, it felt good, even if it hurt like hell at the same time. I stepped off the plane in Santorini, the warm air hitting me like a soft wave, carrying the faint smell of salt and sun-baked stone. My duffel bag hung heavy on my shoulder as I made my way through the tiny airport, dodging tourists with their loud voices and bright shirts. I didn't care about the noise, not yet. All I wanted was to get to the villa I'd booked, drop my stuff, and figure out how to breathe again. The taxi ride was quiet, the driver humming some tune I didn't recognize, winding up narrow roads past white buildings stacked like sugar cubes against the cliffs. I stared out the window, watching the sea shimmer in the distance, and for the first time in days, my chest didn't feel like it was caving in. The villa was better than the pictures, small, simple, with a stone patio that hung over the edge of the hill. The sea stretched out below, endless and blue, sparkling under the afternoon sun. I dropped my bag inside, kicked off my shoes, and stepped out onto the patio barefoot. The tiles were warm under my feet, and I stood there for a minute, just listening. No voices telling me I wasn't needed. No casual shrugs cutting me out. Just the wind and the waves, steady and indifferent. I grabbed a beer from the little fridge the owner had stocked, popped it open, and sank into a wooden chair. My feet went up on the railing, the cold bottle sweating in my hand, and I let out a long, slow breath. This was it. This was mine. I pulled out my phone, not to check for messages, but to take a picture. The sea, my feet, the beer. Simple. I posted it online with a caption, "Silence looks good on me." No explanation, no tags, just that. Within minutes, my brother Luis chimed in, his comment popping up, "Looking like a king, bro. Where you at?" I smirked, imagining his grin back home, probably sprawled on his couch with a soda in hand. Then Ellie texted, not a comment, a private message. "Wait, weren't you supposed to be at Caleb's graduation?" I read it, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? That my own family didn't want me there? That I'd rather be here alone than begging for a spot at their table? I set the phone down and took a swig of beer instead, the cold fish sharp on my tongue. Celia hadn't called. Caleb hadn't texted. Nothing. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung, like a paper cut you don't notice until it starts to burn. I'd always been the one to reach out first, to fix things, to smooth over the rough edges. Not this time. I leaned back in the chair, the sun warm on my face, and closed my eyes. The sound of the waves rolled in, steady and slow, washing away the echo of their voices. Less awkward. Don't take it personal. Out here, those words didn't reach me. Out here, I didn't have to be the guy who took it all in stride. I could just be. The rest of the day slipped by easy. I unpacked my bag, tossing clothes into a drawer, then wandered down to the little market nearby. The guy behind the counter nodded at me, friendly but not nosy, and I grabbed some bread, cheese, and a bottle of wine for later. Back at the villa, I sat on the patio again, tearing off chunks of bread and watching the sun dip lower, painting the sky orange and pink. My phone stayed quiet. No buzz, no guilt trips, no demands. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. For once, I wasn't waiting for them to decide I mattered. I mattered right here, right now, with the sea in front of me and the wind tugging at my shirt. Night came soft and slow, the stars popping out one by one. I poured a glass of wine, the red catching the glow of the little lantern I'd lit on the table. I thought about home for a minute, about Caleb in his cap and gown, Celia fussing over her hair, Myra probably taking a million pictures. I wondered if they'd even noticed I wasn't there, or if they'd just carried on like always, filling the space I used to take up. The thought twisted in my gut, but I pushed it down with another sip of wine. They didn't get to ruin this. Not this view, not this quiet, not this moment I'd carved out for myself. I stretched out in the chair, the wine warming me from the inside, and let my mind drift. Luis would get it. He'd always been the one to tell me I gave too much, took too little. Ellie would worry, but she'd understand once I told her. And Celia and Caleb? They could wait. They'd made their choice, and now I was making mine. The sea kept whispering below, and I listened, letting it pull me into the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a trip. This was me taking back something they'd taken for granted me. And damn if it didn't feel right, sitting there under the stars, with nothing but silence to keep me company. I woke up on the third day in Santorini with the sun spilling through the open window, a soft breeze tugging at the curtains. The villa was still quiet, the kind of quiet that settles into your bones and makes you wonder how you ever lived without it. I rolled out of bed, my bare feet hitting the cool stone floor, and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee. The sea was glittering outside, same as yesterday, but today felt different, like I'd finally started to sink into this place, letting it wrap around me. I took my mug out to the patio and sat by the infinity pool, the water so still it looked like glass. My phone was on the table, face down, where I'd left it last night. I hadn't checked it since that beer and feet photo, and I wasn't planning to. Not yet. The coffee was strong, bitter, the way I liked it, and I sipped it slow, watching a fishing boat bob way out on the horizon. For a while, it was just me in the morning. No voices, no demands, no sting of being told I didn't fit. I stretched my legs out, feeling the sun warm my skin, and thought about staying here forever. Maybe I could sell the house, quit the job, live off bread and fish until the money ran out. It was a stupid idea, but it made me smile, picturing Celia's face if I told her I wasn't coming back. She'd probably just shrug and say it was my loss. Caleb might not even notice until he needed a ride somewhere. I was halfway through my coffee when the phone buzzed. Just once, a quick jolt against the wood. I ignored it. Probably Luis, checking in, or Ellie with another question. I didn't care. I set the mug down and leaned back, closing my eyes, letting the sun paint red behind my lids. Then it buzzed again, and again. I opened one eye, annoyed, and flipped it over. The screen lit up, missed calls, texts, a voicemail icon blinking. Celia's name. Caleb's too. Even Aunt Myra, Celia's sister, who never called unless someone was dying or she needed to meddle. My stomach twisted, not out of worry, but irritation. What now? What mess did they need me to clean up this time? I didn't touch it. I grabbed a beer from the fridge instead. Yeah, it was early, but I was on my own clock now, and walked back to the pool. The buzzing kept going, like a fly you can't swat away. 5 calls. 10. 20. I sat down, popped the cap, and took a long pull, the cold fizz cutting through the heat in my chest. The screen kept flashing, names stacking up, but I didn't answer. I didn't listen to the voicemails either. Whatever it wasn't my problem. Not today. I'd spent years jumping when they called, fixing what they broke, smoothing over their fights. Not this time. Let them figure it out. I leaned back in the chair, the beer bottle sweating in my hand, and watched the sea instead. The waves were picking up, rolling in slow and steady, crashing against the rocks below. My phone buzzed again. Celia, probably leaving another message, her voice sharp and clipped like always. I could almost hear it without listening. Malcolm, where are you? This isn't funny. Or Caleb, mumbling some half-baked excuse. Dad, something happened. Call me back. I didn't care. I took another sip, the bottle cool against my lips, and let the sound of the water drown out the noise in my head. By noon, it was a storm. 125 missed calls, the number climbing every time I glanced at the screen. Texts too, piling up like leaves in a gutter. Malcolm, answer me. Dad, please. It's urgent. Call us. Urgent for who? I set the phone down again, harder this time, and walked to the edge of the patio, staring out at the cliffs. The white buildings glowed under the sun, the blue roofs sharp against the sky. It was beautiful, peaceful, everything home wasn't. I didn't owe them anything, not an explanation, not a rescue, not a damn thing. They'd made it clear I wasn't part of their big day. Why should I run back now? I finished the beer and grabbed another, settling by the pool with my feet dangling in the water. The cold bit at my toes, sharp and real, pulling me back to the moment. The buzzing slowed down eventually, like they'd tired themselves out, but I knew it wasn't over. They'd try again later, louder, angrier. I didn't care. I kicked my feet in the water, watching the ripples spread, and thought about how good it felt to not be needed. For years, I'd been the one holding it all together, paying bills, calming fights, driving Caleb to practice when Celia couldn't be bothered. And what did I get? A casual, don't come over tea and an apple. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the morning haze, and I stayed there, beer in hand, letting the day roll over me. I wasn't mad anymore. Not like I was in the kitchen, gripping that counter. I was just done. Done waiting, done chasing, done being the guy they only noticed when they needed something. My phone buzzed one more time, Myra again, and I flipped it face down, the screen dark against the table. Whatever was happening back home, it could wait. I had the sea, the sun, and this quiet I'd fought too long to find. They could keep their chaos. I was staying right here. I was sitting on the patio, the sun dipping low over the sea, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold, when my phone rang again. It had been quiet for a couple hours, the buzzing finally dying down after that morning storm of calls. I'd spent the day by the pool, letting the heat soak into my skin, sipping water now instead of beer, feeling lighter than I had in years. The sea was calm, the air soft, and I was starting to think maybe they'd given up until the screen lit up with Luis's name. My brother. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the button. Luis wasn't like the others. He wouldn't guilt me or beg me to fix something. He'd just want to talk. I picked up. Yo, Malcolm. His voice came through loud, laughing already, like he'd been waiting to tell me something good. You picked the best week to disappear, bro. I'm telling you, you missed a show. I leaned back in my chair, a grin tugging at my mouth despite myself. Luis had a way of making anything sound like a story worth hearing. What happened? I asked, keeping my tone light, even though part of me braced for the mess I'd dodged. He laughed again, harder this time, and I could picture him wiping his eyes, sprawled on his beat-up couch back home. Caleb's graduation? Total disaster. You're gonna love this. He started spilling it all, his words fast and sharp, like he couldn't wait to get it out. The ceremony went fine, he said. Caleb got his diploma. Celia clapped too loud. Myra took a million blurry pictures. But the real chaos hit at the brunch after, some fancy place Celia picked to show off. Caleb's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now, I guess, stood up in the middle of it, right there in front of the whole family, and called him out. She had receipts, man, Luis said, still chuckling. Text messages, pictures, everything. Said he'd been cheating on her for months with some girl from his econ class. Dropped it like a bomb and walked out. I sat up straighter, the grin fading into something else, shock, maybe, or just disbelief. I could see it in my head, Celia's face going red, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth, trying to laugh it off like it was a joke. Caleb probably turned white, then red, then stormed out, because that's what he does when he's cornered. Luis kept going, painting the scene. Celia tried to play it cool. You know how she is. Oh, young love. These things happen. But everyone was staring. Myra started crying into her napkin, saying something about family unity. And Caleb? He flipped a chair on his way out. Gone. Didn't even take his plate. I let out a low whistle, leaning forward now, my elbows on my knees. A chair, I said, and Luis laughed again. Yeah, man, a chair. It was like a soap opera. I stared out at the sea, the last of the sunlight glinting off the waves, and tried to picture it. Part of me wanted to laugh. Serves them right. After all that family-only nonsense. But part of me just felt tired. Tired for them. Tired of them. And get this, Luis said, his voice dropping like he was saving the best for last. The whole time, they kept looking around, like you were gonna walk in and save the day. Celia even said it. If Malcolm was here, this wouldn't have happened. Can you believe that? I snorted, shaking my head. Yeah, I can believe it. That's her move. Blame me when I'm there. Blame me when I'm not. Luis went quiet for a second, then said, You okay, bro? I mean, really? I looked down at my hands, the phone warm against my ear, and thought about it. Was I okay? The sea was still there, the sky turning purple now, the villa quiet behind me. Yeah, I said finally. I'm good. Better than good. He didn't push, just hummed like he got it. Well, you missed a hell of a show. Wish I'd been smart like you and booked a plane ticket too. I smiled, a real one this time, and it felt good, like a crack in the wall I'd been holding up for too long. We talked a little more about his job, his dog, nothing heavy. Then he said he'd call later, let me enjoy my paradise. I hung up and set the phone down, staring at it for a minute. They looked for me. After telling me not to come, after cutting me out, they'd still expected me to be there, to fix it all. I stood up, walked to the edge of the patio, and leaned on the railing, the sea breeze cool against my face. The stars were starting to peek out, tiny dots against the dark, and I let Luis's words sink in. A disaster. A flipped chair. Tears and blame. And me? I wasn't there to carry it. I went inside, grabbed a glass of water, and came back out, settling into the chair again. The night was warm, the air thick with salt, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not anymore, just a kind of quiet I hadn't known I could have. They'd made their mess, and I wasn't part of it. I didn't have to be. I sipped the water, the glass cold in my hand, and watched the stars brighten. For once, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces. I wasn't the one they could lean on and then push away. I was here, and they were there, and that was fine. More than fine, it was freedom. I woke up late on day 4, the sun already high, sneaking through the shutters and warming the stone floor of the villa. My head felt heavy, not from drinking, just from the weight of yesterday's call with Luis still sitting on me. I rolled out of bed, stretched until my back popped, and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee. The sea was out there, same as always, shimmering like it didn't care about the mess back home. I didn't either, not really. I took my mug to the patio and sat down, letting the heat of the cup seep into my hands, trying to shake off the picture Luis had painted, chairs flipping, tears falling, and them looking for me like I was some kind of superhero who'd swoop in and fix it all. My phone was still on the table, quiet now, no buzzing to break the peace. I'd left it there after talking to Luis, not bothering to check the missed calls or texts that had piled up. I didn't want to hear Celia's voice, sharp and accusing, or Caleb's mumbled excuses. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness waking me up, and stared out at the water. The villa was mine for a few more days, and I planned to soak up every second of this. Sun, silence, no one needing me to play the good guy. I was halfway through the mug when the phone lit up, a soft ping breaking the quiet. An email. I glanced at it, Celia's name in bold. My stomach tightened, but I didn't open it right away. I finished my coffee first, slow and deliberate, like I was proving something to myself. When I finally tapped the screen, her words were short, cold, classic Celia. You've made your point. Come home. That was it. No sorry, no explanation. Just her telling me what to do like I was a kid who'd stormed off after a tantrum. I read it again, my jaw clenching, and set the phone down hard enough to make the table rattle. Made my point? This wasn't a game, wasn't some petty move to get back at them. I'd left because they'd pushed me out, because I was tired of being the one who took the hit and kept smiling. I stood up, pacing the patio, the tiles warm under my feet, feeling that old anger bubble up, the kind I'd swallowed for years. Then another ping. A text this time from Caleb. Dad, I'm sorry. I screwed up. Please call me. I stopped pacing, staring at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Sorry. He was sorry now, after the graduation, after the girlfriend drama, after letting his mom tell me I didn't belong. I could hear his voice in my head, low and hesitant, the way he sounded when he knew he'd messed up but didn't know how to fix it. Part of me wanted to call him, to hear him out, to be the dad who always made it right. But I didn't. I dropped the phone back on the table and walked to the edge of the patio, gripping the railing, the sea stretching out below like it could wash all this away. I wasn't ready, not for Celia's orders, not for Caleb's guilt. I needed more time, more space, more of this quiet I'd found. I grabbed my shoes and a bottle of water, deciding to hike instead of sitting here stewing. The trail started just down the road, winding up the cliffs, and I set out, the sun hot on my shoulders, the air thick with the smell of salt and dry grass. My legs burned as I climbed, but it felt good, real, solid, something I could control. I passed a few other hikers, nodding hello, but kept going, higher and higher, until I reached a spot where the whole island spread out below me. White houses, blue roofs, the sea endless and bright. I sat on a rock, catching my breath, and let my mind wander. I thought about all the times they'd forgotten me, not big things, just the little ones that piled up. My birthday last year, when Celia said she was too tired to cook and Caleb didn't even call. The rides I gave him to school, to practice, to friends' houses, no thanks, just a wave as he ran off. The nights I stayed late at work so he could have that tuition, so Celia could keep her nice car. I'd never asked for much, just a nod, a word, something to show it mattered. And then they'd sat there in the kitchen, casual as anything, telling me to stay home while they celebrated. I wiped sweat off my forehead, the sun climbing higher, and felt that ache in my chest again, not sharp now, just dull, heavy. The hike back down was slower, my knees complaining, but my head was clearer. I stopped at the market, grabbed some bread and olives, and headed back to the villa. The phone was still there, glowing with their words, but I didn't touch it. I ate on the patio instead, tearing off chunks of bread, popping olives in my mouth, watching the sea turn gold as the sun started to sink. Caleb's sorry kept echoing in my head, but it wasn't enough, not yet. I'd spent too long being the one who forgave first, who let it go, who kept the peace. This time, they'd have to wait. Night fell, the stars coming out slow, and I poured a glass of wine, sitting there with my feet up. The air was cooler now, the quiet deeper, and I let it settle over me. They could call, they could text, they could email all they wanted. I wasn't running back, not to Celia's demands, not to Caleb's mess. I took a sip, the wine sharp and smooth, and felt something like strength growing inside me. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about me finally seeing what I was worth. And out here, with the sea and the stars, I was starting to believe it. I woke up on day 5 with the sun already creeping over the cliffs, the light soft and golden through the villa's open window. My body felt stiff from yesterday's hike, but my mind was calmer, like the sea had smoothed out some of the rough edges overnight. I made coffee, same as always, and took it out to the patio, letting the warmth of the mug settle into my hands. The phone sat there, untouched since Caleb's text and Celia's email, but I didn't look at it. Today wasn't about them. Today, I wanted something different, something new. I finished my coffee, grabbed my sandals, and decided to head down to the black sand beach I'd seen on the map. No plan, just a walk, a change of scenery. The path to the beach was steep, winding through dry shrubs and rocky patches, the air thick with salt as I got closer. My legs ached a little, but I kept going, the sound of waves growing louder until the sand came into view, dark, almost black, stretching out under the sun. It wasn't crowded, just a few people scattered around, some lounging, some waiting in the shallow water. I kicked off my sandals, the sand hot under my feet, and walked toward the edge, letting the waves lap at my toes. The water was cold, a sharp contrast to the heat, and I stood there for a while, breathing it in, feeling the ground solid beneath me. I was about to sit down, maybe dig out the book I'd stuffed in my pocket, when I noticed her, a woman, maybe late 40s, sitting alone under a striped umbrella a few yards away. She had a notebook in her lap, a pen moving fast across the page, her dark hair tied back loose. Something about her caught my eye, not loud, not flashy, just easy, like she belonged there. I didn't stare, just glanced, but then she looked up, caught me looking, and smiled. Not a big smile, just a quick one, friendly. I nodded back, feeling a little dumb, and turned to the water again, figuring that was it. Beautiful, isn't it? Her voice came a minute later, soft but clear, with a hint of an accent, French, maybe Spanish. I turned, surprised, and saw she'd set her notebook down, leaning forward a bit. Yeah, I said, walking closer, not sure why but not stopping either. Never seen sand like this before. She nodded, patting the sand next to her umbrella. It's volcanic. Sit, if you want. I don't bite. I hesitated, then shrugged and sat, the sand warmed through my shorts. Up close, she had lines around her eyes, the kind that come from laughing or squinting at the sun, and a calmness I hadn't felt in anyone in a long time. Her name was Sabine. She told me half French, half Spanish, a travel writer who'd been bouncing around islands for months. I'm here for the quiet, she said, pouring wine from a small bottle into 2 plastic cups, handing me one without asking. I took it, the red catching the light, and sipped. It was warm, sharp, better than I expected. Me too, I said, and she tilted her head, like she was waiting for more but wouldn't push. I didn't give her the whole story, not yet. Just said I was taking a break from home, from family. She nodded, like she got it, and told me about her own kids, grown now, scattered across Europe. They don't need me much anymore, she said, smiling a little sad. So I need myself instead. We talked for hours, the sun climbing higher, then dipping low. She told me about hiking in Mallorca, getting lost in Crete, the time she slept on a beach in Portugal because she missed her ferry. I laughed, really laughed, the kind that shakes you loose, and told her about fishing with Luis, the time we capsized the boat and had to swim back swearing the whole way. I didn't mention Celia or Caleb, and she didn't ask about the calls I kept ignoring, the phone silent in my pocket. It was easy with her, no pressure, no weight, like she saw me without needing me to explain. We ate olives from a little jar she'd brought, passing them back and forth, the salt sharp on my tongue. The beach emptied out as the afternoon faded, just us and a few stragglers left. She asked if I'd ever traveled alone before, and I said no, not like this. It's freedom, she said, leaning back on her elbows, the sunset turning her face gold. But it's heavy too, at first. I nodded, feeling that heaviness still in me, but lighter now, like I was shedding it piece by piece. Yeah, I said. I'm getting used to it. The sun sank below the water, the sky going purple, and we sat there, quiet now, just watching. My phone buzzed once, probably them again, but I didn't check. Sabine didn't notice or didn't care, and I like that. She didn't need me to be anything but here, sitting with her, sharing wine and stories. For once, I wasn't the husband who'd failed, the dad who'd been pushed out. I was just Malcolm, a guy on a beach, and she really saw me, without me having to beg for it. When it got dark, she packed up her notebook, said she'd be around tomorrow if I wanted to talk more. I said I might, and she smiled that quick smile again, then walked off toward the path. I stayed a little longer, the waves loud in the dark, feeling something warm settle in my chest. Not love, not anything big, just a moment where I wasn't invisible. And damn, it felt good. I woke up on day 6 with the sun already high, the villa quiet except for the faint hum of cicadas outside. My head was still buzzing from yesterday, Sabine, the beach, that easy way she'd made me feel seen without even trying. I rolled out of bed, my feet hitting the cool floor, and made coffee, letting the smell pull me awake. The sea was out there, shimmering like always, but today I didn't rush to the patio. I stayed inside, leaning against the counter, sipping slow, thinking about how different it felt to talk to someone who didn't need anything from me. No guilt, no fixes, just words and wine and the sound of waves. My phone was on the table where I'd left it, the screen dark but heavy with everything I hadn't faced yet. I'd ignored it all yesterday, texts, calls, that email from Celia, but I knew it was there, waiting. I finished my coffee, set the mug in the sink, and finally picked it up. The missed calls had slowed, but the voicemails kept stacking up. I scrolled through, seeing Celia's name, Caleb's, Myra's, even one from Luis I hadn't answered. I didn't want to listen, not really, but something pulled at me, curiosity, maybe, or just the old habit of checking in. I tapped Celia's latest one, dated last night, and hit play. Her voice came through sharp, the way it always did when she was mad but trying to sound calm. Malcolm, if you were there, Caleb wouldn't have snapped like that. We needed you, and you just left. This has gone on long enough. The message cut off, abrupt, like she'd hung up before she could say more. I stood there, staring at the phone, my jaw tight, feeling that familiar twist in my gut. Needed me? They'd needed me when it fell apart, but not when it mattered. Not when they told me to stay home. Not when they picked who got to sit at that table. I deleted the voicemail, my thumb pressing harder than it needed to, and tossed the phone back on the table. I walked out to the patio, the sun warm on my face, and leaned on the railing, looking down at the sea. Needed me. The words kept circling, digging in. For years, I'd been the one they leaned on. The steady hand, the quiet fixer, the guy who didn't ask for much but gave everything. I'd driven Caleb to school when he missed the bus, sat through Celia's rants about her sister, paid bills late so they could have what they wanted. I'd been the backdrop to their lives, there but not really seen, holding it all together while they moved on without me. And now, when it all went wrong, it was my fault for not being there to catch them. I grabbed a chair, dragged it to the edge of the patio, and sat down hard, my hands clenched in my lap. The sea rolled in below, steady and slow, and I let my mind run back through it all. The times I'd stayed silent when Celia snapped at me, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. The nights I'd waited up for Caleb, only to get a text saying he was crashing at a friend's. The way they'd looked right through me in that kitchen, like I was just part of the furniture, not a man who'd built this family with his own hands. I'd thought that was my job, to be there, to take it, to keep things smooth. But what did I get? A casual "don't come," and a voicemail blaming me for their mess. I stood up, pacing now, the tiles hot under my feet. The anger was there, but it wasn't loud. Not like it had been when I'd packed my bag and left. It was quieter, deeper, mixed with something else, clarity, maybe. It wasn't my absence that broke them. It was their neglect of me when I was there. They'd taken me for granted, assumed I'd always be around to pick up the pieces, and now that I wasn't, they didn't know what to do. I stopped pacing, leaning on the railing again, and let out a long breath. The sea kept moving, indifferent, and I felt a weight lift, just a little, but enough. I went inside, grabbed the bottle of wine Sabine had left me, a spare she'd pressed into my hand with a grin, and poured a glass. The red glowed in the sunlight streaming through the window, and I took it back to the patio, settling into the chair. I deleted Celia's voicemail from my mind too, sipping slow, letting the taste ground me. She could blame me all she wanted. Caleb could sulk. Myra could cry into her phone. It didn't change the truth. I wasn't their crutch anymore. I'd spent too long being the backdrop, the shadow they only noticed when the lights went out. Not now. The wine was smooth, warm in my chest, and I watched the stars start to peek out, one by one. Sabine's words from yesterday floated back. Freedom, heavy at first, but worth it. She was right. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me, about seeing myself the way she'd seen me yesterday, just a guy, not a fix, not a failure. I finished the glass, set it down, and leaned back, the night settling over me. No regret, no second-guessing. They'd figure it out, or they wouldn't. Either way, I was done waiting in the wings. I was here, under these stars, and for once, that was enough. I woke up on day 7 with the sun already burning through the curtains, the air thick and warm in the villa. My head felt clear, lighter than it had in days, like that glass of wine last night had washed away some of the junk I'd been carrying. I stretched, my back cracking, and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee, the routine grounding me. The sea was out there, sparkling under the morning light, and I took my mug to the patio, settling into my usual spot. My phone was still on the table, quiet since I'd deleted Celia's voicemail, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way. They'd call again. They always did when they realized I wasn't running back. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness wake me up, and waited. Sure enough, mid-morning, it buzzed Luis this time. I picked up, leaning back in my chair, the sea breeze tugging at my shirt. "Hey, bro," he said, his voice easy but with an edge, like he had news. "You still kicking it in paradise?" I smiled, picturing him sprawled on his couch, probably scratching that mud of his behind the ears. "Yeah," I said. "Still here. What's up?" He let out a low whistle, the kind he used when something big was brewing. "Man, it's falling apart over here. You sure you don't want to come play hero?" I snorted, setting my mug down. "Pretty sure. Tell me." He laid it out, piece by piece, like he was reading a script. Caleb hadn't gone home after the graduation mess, been crashing at a friend's place, dodging Celia's calls, blaming everyone for what went down. "Kid's a wreck," Luis said. "Keep saying it's his fault, then her fault, then your fault for not being there to stop it." I rolled my eyes, staring out at the water. "My fault. Of course." Luis kept going. Celia had packed a bag and moved in with Myra, saying she needed space from the house from the drama. "She's been calling you nonstop, you know," he said. "Thinks you're punishing her." I didn't say anything, just let the words sit, heavy but not surprising. Then he dropped the last bit. Myra had left me a voicemail too, one I hadn't listened to yet. "She's all weepy," Luis said, mimicking her high-pitched whine. "Malcolm, you were always the balance. We need you back. Like you're some glue holding their crazy together." I laughed, short and sharp, shaking my head. The balance. Funny how they only saw that now, after telling me to stay away. Luis went quiet for a second, then asked, "You good, man? I mean, really?" I looked out at the sea, the waves rolling in slow, and nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good. Let him crack." We talked a little more, about his job, the dog, how he'd dodged Myra's calls too, then hung up. I set the phone down and stood, stretching my arms over my head, feeling the sun on my skin. Cracks in the castle, huh? Caleb sulking, Celia running, Myra crying. It was their mess, not mine. I wasn't their glue, their balance, their fix. I'd been that for too long, patching up their fights, swallowing their slights, keeping it all steady while they took it for granted. Not anymore. I grabbed my sandals and decided to head out, find some food, clear my head, let the island pull me back to the present. I walked down to a little taverna near the cliffs, the smell of grilled fish and garlic hitting me as I stepped inside. The guy behind the counter nodded, friendly but not pushy, and I ordered fish and a glass of red wine, settling at a table outside. The food came fast, crisp, hot, the fish flaky under my fork, and I ate slow, savoring it, the wine sharp on my tongue. The sea was right there, glittering below, and I felt that quiet settle in again, the kind I'd been chasing since I got here. My phone buzzed once. Myra, probably, but I ignored it, taking another bite instead. When I finished, I paid and walked back to the villa, the sun dipping lower now, casting long shadows on the path. I stopped at the market, grabbed some bread and cheese for later, and posted a picture when I got back. Me smiling, the sea behind me. Caption: "Turns out overreacting feels like peace." I didn't check for likes, didn't wait for comments. I didn't need their approval, didn't need them to see me. I poured another glass of wine and sat on the patio, the night creeping in, the stars popping out slow. Luis's words stuck with me. Cracks in the castle. They were falling apart without me, but it wasn't my job to hold them up anymore. I sipped the wine, the glass cool in my hand, and let my mind drift. Caleb could blame me all he wanted. Didn't change the fact that he'd made his choices. Celia could run to Myra, play the victim, but she'd push me out first. And Myra? She could cry all she liked. I wasn't her brother, wasn't. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and watched the sea turn dark. The cracks were theirs, not mine. I'd built something here, something solid, even if it was just a week of quiet. And damn if it didn't feel better than anything I'd left behind. I woke up on my last morning in Santorini with the sun just peeking over the cliffs, the sky still soft with that early gray-blue light. The villa was quiet, my bag half-packed on the floor, the air cool through the open window. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of leaving this place settle in. It wasn't heavy, not like the weight I'd carried when I got here, just a tug, a little ache for the peace I'd found. I rolled out of bed, my feet hitting the stone floor, and made coffee, the familiar routine steadying me. Today was it. My flight was in the afternoon, and I'd be back home by night. But I wasn't the same guy who'd left. Not anymore. I took my mug outside, the patio still shadowed, and sat by the pool, watching the sunrise creep up slow, turning the sea gold. My phone was on the table, the screen cluttered with notifications I'd ignored, missed calls, texts, voicemails piling up like driftwood. I'd scrolled past them yesterday, not ready to face the noise. But now, with the island waking up around me, I felt steady enough to look. I sipped my coffee, the warmth spreading through me, and tapped the screen. Dozens of calls, Celia, Caleb, Myra, even a couple from Ellie at work. I skipped most of them, not interested in more guilt or blame, but one caught my eye. A voicemail from Caleb, left late last night. No text to go with it, just the little icon blinking. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then hit play. His voice came through, low and rough, not the usual mumble. "Dad," he said, pausing like he wasn't sure how to start. "I really messed up. I know I did. Not just the graduation, all of it. I miss you, Dad." Another pause, a shaky breath. "I'm not making excuses. I miss you." The message ended, short and raw, and I sat there, staring at the phone, my coffee forgotten in my hand. "No, sorry. No, call me. Just that. I miss you." It hit me harder than I expected, ache blooming in my chest, not sharp, just deep. I set the phone down and leaned back, watching the sun climb higher, the light spilling over the cliffs. "I miss you." Simple words, but they stirred something, memories of Caleb as a kid, climbing into my lap after a bad day, asking me to fix his bike, grinning when I cheered at his games. I'd been his rock back then, the guy he ran to, and somewhere along the way, that had faded. He'd grown up, pulled away, let Celia's words drown mine out. But this was him reaching back, maybe not all the way, but enough to crack the wall I'd built. I didn't want to run home, didn't want to fix it all, not yet. But I felt it, that pull, that old love I'd buried under the hurt. I stood up, walked to the edge of the patio, and leaned on the railing, the sea breeze cool against my face. The island stretched out below, white houses glowing, the water endless and bright. I'd shed so much here at anger, guilt, the need to be their anchor. But Caleb's voice stayed with me, quiet and real, and I knew I couldn't leave it hanging. Not like this. I went back to the table, picked up the phone, and opened the voice recorder. My hands were steady, my voice low when I started. "Caleb," I said, pausing to find the words. "I heard you. I'm glad you called, but I'm not coming back to fix this for you. When you're ready to talk like a man, not a victim, not a kid, call me. I'll be there." I stopped, hit send, and powered off the phone, the screen going dark. I finished my coffee, the mug cold now, and started packing the rest of my stuff, shirts, sandals, the little jar of olives Sabine had left me. The villa felt smaller now, like it was letting me go, and I moved slow, folding clothes, zipping the bag shut. I took one last walk around the patio, the sun warm on my shoulders, and stood at the edge, breathing it in. This place had given me something: clarity, strength, a chance to see myself without them defining me. Caleb's call didn't change that. It just reminded me there was still something worth saving, if he'd meet me halfway. I grabbed my bag, locked the villa, and headed to the taxi waiting down the road. The driver nodded, tossing my duffel in the back, and we wound through the cliffs toward the airport. I watched the sea fade behind me, the white buildings shrinking, and felt lighter than I had in years. Not free, not completely. There was still home, still them, but lighter. I'd left a piece of myself here, the part that waited, that begged to be seen. What I was taking back was different, stronger, sure, mine. The airport was small, busy with tourists, and I checked in, settled into a chair by the gate, my bag at my feet. My phone stayed off, tucked away. Caleb might call again, might not. Celia might show up at the house, might not. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I'd said what I needed to, given him the door to walk through if he was ready. The plane boarded, and I took my seat, the hum of the engine steady as we climbed. Santorini fell away below, a speck of white and blue, and I closed my eyes, letting it go. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. I stepped off the plane late that night, the air cool and sharp after Santorini's warmth. My duffel bag slung over my shoulder as I shuffled through the airport. The hum of people, tired voices, rolling suitcases felt louder than I remembered, but I kept my head down, moving steady toward the parking lot where I'd left my truck. It was still there, dusty but waiting, and I tossed my bag in the back, sliding into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life, familiar and rough, and I pulled out, the city lights blurring past as I headed home. I didn't know what I'd find there. Celia, Caleb, an empty house, but for once, I wasn't bracing for it. I was just driving. The house came into view after 20 minutes, dark and quiet, no lights in the windows. I parked, grabbed my bag, and walked up the steps, the key cold in my hand. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, flipping the switch. The living room glowed soft under the bulb. Same couch, same TV, but it felt different, emptier. Celia's stuff was gone, her throw pillows, that ugly vase she loved, the shoes always piled by the door. No note, no mess, just silence. I stood there, letting it sink in, and realized it didn't hit me like I thought it would. It felt clean, like the air after a storm. She'd left, and I was okay with it. I dropped my bag by the stairs and walked through the house, checking rooms out of habit. The kitchen was bare, no dishes in the sink, no tea bags on the counter. Caleb's room was the same, bed unmade, but his backpack and clothes were missing. He hadn't been here either, still crashing somewhere else, I guessed. I didn't feel the urge to call him, to check. He'd heard my message, and the ball was in his court now. I went back downstairs, grabbed a beer from the fridge, one I'd left behind, and cracked it open, the fizz loud in the quiet. The house was mine again, for better or worse, and I wasn't sure what to do with it yet. I took the beer to the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at the blank TV. My suit for the graduation was still hanging in the closet. I bought it months ago, black and crisp, thinking I'd stand proud when Caleb walked the stage. I didn't need it now. I got up, pulled it out, and ran my hand over the fabric. It felt heavy, like a promise I'd made to myself that they'd broken. I didn't want it sitting there, a reminder of what didn't happen. I folded it into a box, added the tie, and set it by the door. Donation, maybe, or trash. Either way, it wasn't mine anymore. The next morning, I woke up slow, the house still quiet, the sun filtering through the blinds. I made coffee, strong and black, and drank it at the kitchen table, feeling the space around me. It wasn't lonely, not yet, just different. I pulled out my phone, powered it on for the first time since Santorini, and watched the notifications roll in. Text from Ellie, asking if I was back. A couple from Luis, checking in. Nothing from Celia, nothing from Caleb. I texted Ellie I was home, told Luis I'd call later, and left it at that. I didn't dig through the old stuff, didn't listen to voicemails. I was done chasing their voices. I needed something to do, something mine, so I looked up a hiking club online, local, weekends, nothing fancy. I signed up, no hesitation, picturing trails and fresh air, a way to keep moving. Back in Santorini, I'd felt alive on those cliffs, and I wanted that here too. I spent the day cleaning, wiping counters, tossing old junk, making the house feel less like theirs and more like mine. By evening, I was tired, my hands gritty, but it felt good, like I was carving out a space I'd lost somewhere along the way. That night, I cooked dinner, steak, simple, seared in a pan with salt and pepper. I lit a candle, one Celia had left behind, and set it on the table, the flame flickering soft. I ate alone, the steak hot and juicy, the beer cold in my hand, and didn't mind the quiet. It wasn't empty, it was full, full of me. I didn't need their noise, their chaos, to feel whole. I finished, washed the plate, and sat back on the couch, the candle still burning low. The house creaked, settling, and I let my mind drift, not to them, but to what came next. Caleb might call, might show up with that look in his eyes, ready to talk like I'd asked. I'd listen if he did, but I wouldn't beg for it. Celia might come back, might not. I didn't care either way. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. I wasn't waiting anymore, wasn't holding my breath for them to see me. Santorini had shown me I didn't need to. I'd been the backdrop too long, fading into their story, but now I was the whole damn thing front and center. No apologies. I blew out the candle, the smoke curling up, and headed to bed, the stairs creaking under my feet. The man who'd left this house a week ago was gone, angry, invisible, waiting. The man who came back was different, steadier, sure, alive. I climbed into bed, the sheets cool, and closed my eyes, the quiet wrapping around me. Whatever came tomorrow, I'd face it as me, not their shadow. And that was enough.